Hello, traveller. You're at Sleepy Tavern Tales, a warm tavern where the crackle of the hearth blends with gentle lofi, and stories speak softly and unhurriedly. Dim the lights a little, get comfortable, lower the volume, let the voice be just a whisper beside you. Take a slow inhale and an equally calm exhale. There are no sudden sounds here. No worry, only kind things that help you fall asleep. If your eyes start to close, don't hold them open. Sleep will carry you to the end of the road. Good night. The tavern had finished talking for the day. Chairs faced the hearth like old friends who knew when to listen. The kettle kept a steady promise, and the window kept a steady moon. On the counter lay a sealed envelope the colour of late cream. My name was on it, written in a hand that had learned not to hurry. I, the badger who keeps this place, wiped my paws, picked up the letter, and broke the seal. Inside were two things, a short note and a thin length of twine, soft as a sleeve that understands an elbow. The note said, very simply, "The lighthouse bell is silent. Its pull rope has worn through from years of kind ringing. Please bring a new rope before dawn. It must be braided from things in our town that help people fall asleep. Do not rush." Mina, the fennec with thoughtful ears, set a teapot on a coaster and came closer. "What does it say?" she asked. "It says the bell needs a rope," I answered, holding up the twine. "Not just any rope. It asks for one made of calm. We have to gather it from the people who know how to help the night." Mina nodded at once. "Then we will visit the neighbours who carry quiet in their work," she said. She wrapped several oat honey squares in paper. "These are for sharing," she added. "Cookies make hard talk gentle." I dimmed one lamp and left the other thinking. "Hold the fire for us," I told the room. The flames lowered themselves, as if tucking in. "All right," the room seemed to say. Outside, the lane wore moonlight the way a well-kept floor wears polish. At the mouth of the boardwalk stood the Kvakri night watchman, a frogfolk elder with a hat that had seen fog and sunlight in equal measure. His lantern glowed like a vowel, almost whispered. "On business for sleep?" he asked. "For the lighthouse rope," I said. "The bell is waiting." He tipped his hat toward the river. "Then start with light that listens," he said. His meaning was plain. Visit the tortoise lantern maker first. We walked to the little workshop where the glue likes to breathe. The door was open. Cedar shavings made soft curls on the floor. Orange peels dried in a bowl near the stove. A friendly smoke line drew itself along the rafters and forgot to hurry away. The tortoise sat at his bench, sanding the rim of a greenish glass. Ping, ping. The sound rounded itself like a polite yawn. "Good evening," he said, lifting his gaze without stopping the soft, even motion. "What brings you?" "The lighthouse bell needs a new rope," I said. "The keeper asked for it to be braided from things that help people rest. We came to ask for your part." He nodded, set the glass down, and opened a drawer. "Take this," he said, passing me a narrow roll of pale paper. "It is the strip of listening light. I stretch it over late-hour shades so the brightness will not poke anyone awake. It is strong for its weight, and it remembers to be soft." Mina ran a paw over the edge. "It feels like a patient breath," she said. Describe it to your keeper plainly, the tortoise added. Tell him this piece makes the bell sound warm on the inside of the night. We will, I promised. We left a cookie on his saucer. He smiled, the kind of smile that slows a room down without telling it to stop. The arch bridge was next, where the otter mender keeps stones from forgetting their trust. We found her under the curve, lamplight, steady beside a small kettle. She was pressing a warm linen patch over a hairline crack. The river answered with a low, contented sound. You arrived just in time, she said, setting the kettle aside. What needs mending tonight? The bell needs a rope, I explained, a rope that feels calm in the hand. We are collecting simple, true parts of that calm from around town. I have something for the inside of your braid, she said. She opened a box and drew out thin linen strips. These are strips of steadiness. I use them when a railing wobbles or a beam forgets itself. They do not shout about strength, they simply hold. How should we explain this part? Mina asked. Say it clearly, the otter replied. This layer keeps the bell's movement even. It prevents the pull from being sharp or sloppy. When the keeper breathes in and draws, the rope will answer. When he breathes out and releases, the rope will return quietly. That is all. We thanked her. She tucked a tiny wedge of whittled wood into my paw. If the hook on the beam feels loose, she added, slip this under the doubt. We crossed to the map shop, where the dormouse keeps lines from getting lost. The bell on the door did not ring, it nodded. The dormouse sat with a pencil between careful fingers, looking at a wide sheet. We're making a rope that teaches the hand to move at a sleepy pace, I said. Could you give us something that carries a slow route? 0. 5. The dormouse smiled and pulled out 2 long paper ribbons. On each ribbon ran a single, gentle line, with rounded pauses and small bends. These are lanes of unhurried going, he said. People look at them and breathe easier. Put one in the center of the rope so the whole length remembers the shape. Put one near the handle so the keeper feels the pace before he begins. Plain enough, I said. We will tell him these strips mean direction without push. He added a pressed leaf, pinned to the end of one ribbon. It smelled faintly of wooden bowls and pencil shavings. This is only a marker, he explained, but sometimes a small leaf tells a hand, you are already where you mean to be. From the map shop, we followed the boardwalk to the greenhouse at the marsh edge. The door knew which part of its hinge did not squeak. Warm leaf scent rose to meet us. Vel the mole gardener wore an apron with many pockets, each one convinced of its purpose. What do you need? She asked without fuss. A piece of evening that helps people accept the hour, Mina said. We're braiding a rope for the bell. I can help, Vel answered. She lifted a cotton ribbon with chalk words on it. Butter moon, accepted puddles, clear skies of decent work. I call this the ribbon of agreed weather. When someone reads it, they stop arguing with the sky. Put it on the outside of your rope, where the keeper's fingers will graze it. Sometimes, words are a kind touch. She also handed us a tiny muslin bag. Time, she said. Rub the finished rope once, lightly. It will smell clean and ready. At the marsh platform, the Frogfolk station master stood by his ledger. He broke off several slim reeds and bound them with a loop of twine. Tickets for patient waiting, he said with a smile. Strong fibers, and they teach you to stand still without scolding. Put them inside the rope. You will not see them, but you will feel their advice. How should we write this for the keeper? I asked. Right. This piece prevents hurry. It keeps the hand from tugging before the bell is ready, he said. Make it plain. The many whirl. The many whirl. On the slope above the river, the apple orchard rested under a sky, the colour of quiet metal. The cider fox was stacking small crates. He listened to our request and nodded. I have rhythm for you, he said. 3 apple seeds. Not for planting in soil, plant them in the braid. Space them evenly. When the keeper's fingers pass, the seeds 1, 2, 3, his breath will settle into the same count. He poured us a small cup. It tasted like warm shelves. Good sleep is steady work, he added. These will help. Back at the tavern, we stepped into the rear room, where a loom stands like a quiet neighbour. The elder of the faceless had been weaving. He came forward, mask carved with lines that knew how to wait. Without words, he offered a narrow strip of fabric with a generous fringe. Mina looked to me. I spoke softly. We need a soft end, I said. We need the bell's last sound to fade instead of break. The elder tapped the fringe twice, as if to say, Exactly. We thanked him in the way you thank blankets, by lowering our shoulders a little. Before climbing the hill, we visited the attic, where borrowed clocks keep travellers company. There was a tall clock with a blank, milky face that did not bother with numbers. It swung a gentle pendulum. We stood there together and counted. Draw on the first breath, release on the second. The rhythm fit like a hand finding its pocket. We will remember that, I said, 2-breath timing. The lighthouse keeper, a jackal with kind lines at the corners of his eyes, met us at the door. I am grateful you came, he said simply. I could hang any rope, but then the bell would argue with the town. I don't want that. We brought parts that do not argue, I replied. I unpacked the bundle on a clean table under the lens, and I explained them one by one in ordinary words. This paper strip from the lantern maker keeps the sound warm. These linen strips from the bridge mender keep the pull even. These 2 map ribbons give slow direction. One will live inside the rope, one near your hand. This weather ribbon reminds your fingers that night is normal. These reeds teach patience. These 3 apple seeds set the count. 1, 2, 3. This woven fringe makes sure the ring ends gently. And we will hold the whole routine to the attic clock's rhythm. Draw on one breath, release on the next. The keeper listened, and I could see relief arrive. Thank you, he said. That is clear. We began the braiding. I spoke each step aloud so he could repeat it later without me. First, we make a strong core, I said, laying down the linen strips. Steadiness belongs inside. If steadiness lives outside, it chafes. Inside, it holds. I slid 2 reeds alongside the linen. Patience also belongs inside, I added. You don't need to show it off. You need it to be there. Now a layer of listening light, I continued, wrapping the paper strip around the core. Softness on the surface turns sharp motion into round motion. I laid the first map ribbon so its gentle line ran the length of the braid. Direction without push, I said. This teaches the rope to prefer curves over corners. I stitched the 3 apple seeds at even intervals. These are not fasteners, I explained. They are reminders. When your fingers pass them, you will breathe with them. I spiraled the weather ribbon around everything. These words are small. They do not need to be read. Your hand will catch them anyway. It will remember that a calm night is not a mistake. Near the handle, I added the second map ribbon. Before you even pull, I told the keeper, your hand will feel the slow lane. At the bell end, I tied on the woven fringe. This is the soft ending, I said. Please promise to let the last sound trail away. Mina rubbed the rope once, with a pinch of thyme from Vel's sachet. The scent lifted and then settled, like a blanket rediscovering knees. We checked the hook on the beam. It complained by one whisper. I slid the otter's tiny wedge under it. The complaint stopped. Let's try it, I said, but gently. No performance, only a test. We opened 2 of the round windows to the night. The keeper wrapped the handle once around his hand, the way you hold a friend's sleeve when you are crossing a small stream together. Breathe in, I said. Draw. He pulled on the in-breath. The rope answered with a slow, forgiving stretch. The bell spoke not loudly, not shyly. A round sound walked out of the room and down the hill. Breathe out, I said. Release. He let the rope return on the out-breath. The woven fringe at the bell kissed the end of the note so it would not break. That is the shape, Mina whispered. Again. We repeated the 2-breath ring. And again. The rope taught the hand, and the hand learned. Remember your markers, I said quietly. When your fingers pass the first seed, count 1. That is your draw beginning. When you pass the second seed, count 2. That is your let go beginning. The third seed reminds you to leave a small stillness after the sound walks away. I understand, the keeper said. I can feel it. Down in town, shutters adjusted their thoughts. A mother at a sink turned the cup upside down and set it on the towel. A baker covered a bowl of dough without telling it what to be. A cat that had been arguing with its chair agreed to end the discussion. We gave the bell a greeting pattern. Short, longer, short. Not a code, just a hello. The sound found the river, the orchard, the greenhouse panes, the station platform, the bridge stones, the lantern maker's door, and the attic where the blank-faced clock nodded, as if to say, yes, that is the hour. It works, Mina said. It does, I said, because it explains, not commands. Before we left, I wrote a clear instruction and fixed it near the handle. I read it out loud, so the keeper could ask questions if anything felt vague. Ring for sleep like this. Breathe once to prepare. On the in-breath, draw gently until your fingers meet the second seed. On the out-breath, let the rope return. Leave a small stillness when your fingers touch the third seed. Do not pull hard. Let the rope teach your hand. Inside this rope are patience and steadiness. Outside are listening light and slow direction. Words of calm travel along it. The fringe at the bell end will soften the last sound by itself if you allow it. If wind is strong, make the rings shorter. If the night is still, let them be a little longer, but never sharper. The keeper smiled a tired but honest smile. I can follow that, he said. Thank you for telling it plain. We walked down the hill. The town had grown rounder. The lanes did not feel empty, they felt complete. Back at the tavern, the hearth was still breathing. I hung the green lantern low in the window so the road could see we were not expecting haste. Mina set the cookies and poured tea. "What next?" she asked. "Next, we keep the explanation ready," I said. "When anyone asks why the bell sounds kind, we will tell them. Part of the rope is light that listens. Part of it is steadiness that holds. Part of it is a road that does not hurry. Part of it is weather that says the night is normal. Part of it is patience that cannot be seen but can be felt. Part of it is counting that hands understand. Part of it is an ending that does not cut." It said, "Who was mind?" "That is easy to remember," Mina said. "I can tell it even to someone who is already half asleep." We drank our tea. Outside, the bell gave one more gentle ring, almost a good night to the good night. Then the lighthouse rested. The next evening, as clouds gathered in a friendly way, a traveller stepped into the tavern and asked, "Why is the bell different? It feels like it knows me." "It does not know you," I said, "but it knows how to behave. The rope is made from ordinary things that help people sleep light, that does not poke you, cloth that doesn't wobble, lines that guide without pushing, words that calm, patience hidden in the core, a simple count that hands can feel, and a soft end. The keeper breathes with the rope. That is all." The traveller nodded and took a seat by the window. "That explains the feeling," he said. "It is like being walked home at an unhurried pace." He fell asleep before his tea cooled. We laid a napkin over the cup so the steam would have a place to decide itself. A few nights later, the wind came in from the marsh with small ideas about hurrying the world. The keeper tried to ring the way he always did and felt the rope ask for an adjustment. His fingers reached the first seed. He drew less than usual. His fingers reached the second seed. He let go a little sooner. The bell answered in a shorter voice that still had round edges. The wind gave up its plan and returned to practicing reeds. In time, the rope grew familiar to everyone. People felt it even when they did not touch it. The bridge seemed to rest easier. The orchard measured its sweetness without thinking about it. The greenhouse watered patience like any other plant. The station platform's ledger needed fewer ink lines to describe the time between arrivals and departures. The lantern maker tapped a glass and heard a perfect ping the first time, not because his hand had changed, but because the town had. One afternoon, the kind of afternoon that wants to be evening, the otter mender stopped by the tavern. "The hook at the lighthouse is holding well," she said. "But I left you 2 more linen strips and another small wedge. Not because anything is wrong, just because it is easier to keep steadiness steady than to repair it after it goes wandering." "Wand." "Thank you," I said. "We will store them with a short note, for later calm." Mina added a line in the ledger we keep behind the bar. "Bell rope still kind, keeper still breathing with it. Town still going to bed on time, by feeling rather than by orders." When travellers asked for souvenirs, we did not sell them pieces of rope. We gave them simple cards with the practice written on them. Breathe in, draw, breathe out, release, leave a small stillness. Many wrote back weeks later to say they had tried the same timing with their own lamps, their own doors, their own thoughts, and the timing had behaved like a polite guest that knew when to leave a room brighter than it found it. There was one night when Fog climbed the hill like a careful cat. The bell could have vanished inside it, but the rope had a little reed ticket stitched into its middle. The keeper felt it, remembered the station master's plain advice, "This piece prevents hurry," and smiled. He drew on one breath, released on the next. The bell sounded not to the far fields, but to the close rooms. That was the audience that needed it. People a street away nodded in their sleep. Fog heard itself and decided not to be a problem. On another night, a summer storm practiced being loud and then remembered how to be useful. The greenhouse panes rattled in the wind's first draft. Vel read the weather ribbon out loud. Butter moon, accepted puddles, clear skies of decent work, and the storm recognized itself. It rained on the garden with care. Inside the lighthouse, the keeper shortened the rings to fit the thunder's pauses, and the bell walked between the booms like a calm friend guiding a busy one across the road. Seasons turned without shouting about it. The rope darkened slightly where hands held it. It picked up a little polish from the time and from the clean world it worked in. Once, when a child visited the lighthouse, the keeper let the child touch the 3 seeds and count them. "What are these?" the child asked. "They are reminders to breathe," the keeper said. "One for beginning, one for letting go, and one for leaving room between things. It's easier to keep a town rested when you keep space inside the sound." The child nodded the way honest nods nod, and later that night fell asleep on the ferry before it left the dock. The ferryman, who used to worry about such things, looked at the sleeping child and did not worry. He had started keeping his own version of the practice on a small bell near the wheel. One breath, then another, then a soft pause, before the river did what rivers know how to do. Once a year, we take the rope down and brush it with a warm cloth. We check the knots where the fringe meets the bell. We check the handle for splinters. We breathe together with the keeper, not for ceremony, but because that is how the bell knows how to say good night. People sometimes ask if the magic is complicated. We tell them the truth. There is no trick. The rope is ordinary, but it is made of ordinary things arranged with care. Light that listens, cloth that steadies, lines that guide, words that calm, patience hidden where no one needs to look at it, counting that hands can feel, an ending that does not cut, a rhythm that fits the body, not the clock. That is enough. When Mina writes the menu on slow evenings, she adds a line at the bottom under the soups. Tonight the bell will ring like usual, twice around the time when tea becomes a blanket. Locals know what that means. Travellers ask, and we answer in one sentence. When it rings, you'll notice how your shoulders forget to stay lifted. They smile. Later they tell us we were correct. Sometimes I stand at the window and watch the lighthouse. The rope, even from a distance, looks like a promise kept. The bell, even when silent, looks like a breath waiting to be shaped. When it is time, the keeper draws and releases. The sound goes out calm and returns calmer. It says, "To roofs and doors and cups and pages, you have done enough for today." It says to eyes and hands, "Let the rest of the work be done by sleep." Back at the counter, I keep the original thin twine that came with the letter. It reminds me why we walked the town that night. It reminds me to explain things simply when people need them simple. It reminds me that our neighbours already hold the ingredients for rest. Sometimes they just need someone to braid them together and say, "Here, try this. It will not wake a moth." On certain nights, if someone is far from home and cannot quiet their thoughts, we lend them a smaller rope we keep behind the bar. It is braided in the same way. We show them how to hold it and breathe. We tell them not to pull, only to feel the seeds and the little knots and the smooth paper and the soft words and the fringe. We ask them to count 1 on the draw, 2 on the release, 3 on the pause. They do. Their face changes in the way faces change when effort finally hears permission. When they return the rope, they usually say, "I did not know it could be like that." We say, "It can." Then we pour tea and find them a chair that understands elbows. If you ever walk our lanes after closing, you may notice that even the signs have learned the practice. The notice on the bakery door used to say, "Closed." Now it says, "Flow is resting." The note on the ferry gate used to say, "Last boat 9." Now it says, "River will help you in the morning." And the card near the bell rope says only, "Enough for now." People understand. Tonight the lighthouse will ring like it has learned to ring, with the town not at it. The keeper will hold the handle the way you hold a hand you trust. He will breathe in and draw, breathe out and release, leave a small stillness, and let the fringe tell the last word how to leave. When you hear it, if you are walking, if you are reading, if you are standing at your sink or at your window, let your shoulders remember the practice. 1, 2, and a quiet space. Think of the rope, light that listens, cloth that steadies, lines that guide, words that calm, patience at the core, counting you can feel, a soft end, and a rhythm that fits where your breath already lives. That is the whole instruction. There is nothing hidden in it. You can take it with you. You can teach it to a door, or a kettle, or a thought that will not settle. You can hang it in a room, not as a banner, but as a habit. And if you pass by our tavern window, you will see the green lantern hanging low. That is our sign for no hurry here. We will make you tea. We will say things in ordinary words. We will let the room show you the rest. Sleep well when the bell speaks. It will not order you. It will not test you. It will only explain, as simply as a good rope can explain. It is safe to rest now. The floating library at low tide, a small invitation. The river is practicing silence tonight. It loosens its grip on the stones and learns how to glide without announcing itself. I trim the lamps, sweep a circle of crumbs into the patient bin, and lean on the tavern counter. Some nights, I tell the window, books come to you. Mina places a napkin under a clay teapot, so it won't scuff the wood. And some nights, she says, you go to the books. Down by the quay, there's a rumour. At lowest tide, when the posts show their knotted knees, a certain barge loosens from a shadow and moors without wake. Its lantern is green as an old bottle. Its bell is a teaspoon tapping a cup. If you step aboard, with your voice folded small, you may walk through a library that did not exist yesterday and might not tomorrow. You may borrow a book that will return you gently to yourself. I take the wool shawl that smells faintly of hearth smoke, and Mina slips a paper-wrapped parcel into my paw. For the librarian, she says. Not too sweet. Librarians prefer exact kindness. The river nods from the window, which is to say it shivers the reflection of the moon. Hold the fire for us, I ask the room. It agrees with a low, steady breath. The mooring, that wasn't. The key at low tide is a chalk line between intentions. The Kavakri watchman lifts his hat as I pass, his lantern softer than most lanterns remember to be. Library's in, he murmurs. Came on the quiet side of now. Beyond the last bollard, a barge rests where light invents it. Its hull is older than the tide's schedule. Its ropes look newly forgiven. A heron stands at the gangplank, as if the evening appointed her to be the idea of arrival. Around her legs the water is too polite to slap. Good night, I say. The heron inclines her head by the width of a feather. You've brought a parcel, she observes. Her voice is the smooth side of a pebble. Please keep it sealed until the tea remembers its manners. I step aboard. The boards do not creak. The library smells like page edges and old apple crates, with a seam of river cold stitched through. Lamps float in glass, all of them dialed to the same patient brightness. Somewhere a cup cools without hurry. The librarian and the shelf of doors. The librarian is an otter with the posture of a bookmark, not interrupting, merely marking a good place to rest. Welcome, he says, as if the room has been practicing the word. We organize by weather, not by subject. He leads me to a short shelf of doors. Each door has a hinge, a knob, and a small painted word, rain, dusk, laundry. After the letter, groceries, almost, just back. He touches one, low tide, painted the color of a leaf under glass. Through here, he says, opening the small door, which turns out to be a tall corridor once you commit to entering it. We'll be in the section of what there isn't a good word for. I carry Mina's parcel with both paws. The librarian notices. Tea cakes? He guesses. Not precisely, I say. Mina calls them pages for the mouth. He looks pleased, the way a river looks pleased when a boat chooses the quiet lane. The index of rooms. The first room is all tables, and each table is a map drawn by someone who forgot to be exact. Rivers drift into margins. Towns step aside for orchards. Roads pause to smell soup. At the corner of one table, a dormouse's pencil naps on a page labelled "A Good Place to Be Tired," in handwriting so kind you forgive it for telling you what you already felt. The librarian taps a bell the size of a hazelnut. A Svetelka glides from behind a lamp, glow dimmed to companionable. She rolls a ladder along a rail with reverence. You're welcome to browse, the librarian says. Some atlases respond best to silence, some to humming. He gestures to a sign that says, "Humming permitted," in letters so round they look like biscuits. Next to it, someone has drawn a small bird with a generous beak and labelled it "Permission." Where did you get all this? I ask. He considers. People bring us what they didn't realize they were collecting, he says. We try to shelve it kindly. The book of windows that remember. We pass into a narrow chamber, in which windows hang on the walls like paintings. Each frame looks out on an evening that hasn't finished cooling. One shows a kitchen where spoons rest bowls up. Another shows a workshop where a tortoise taps a glass lantern ping rounding its tone until even a moth wouldn't wake. I find a small window with a simple frame. It looks like the tavern on a night when the bread is listening. The chairs cool evenly. The book of Proverbs is open to the page where wisdom decides to breathe. In the lower right corner, a paw I know sets a cup on a napkin. I raise my own paw. In the window, the other paw completes the motion. The librarian watches my face with the gentle curiosity of a shore. It's the right size, he says. Some windows remember only what fits. What do you lend here? I ask. We don't lend windows, he smiles. We remind you where yours is. The room of signs that don't insist. The sign room is restful because nothing needs to be obeyed. A card on a stand reads, "Take a deep breath," the D crossed out, the A underlined twice as if it were a small laugh. Another says, "You may put that thought down." On the far wall, "Please be as you are," quietly. A mushroomkin in a travelling cloak traces a finger around a wooden roundel carved with a ring, no start, no end. This is a good sign, he tells no one in particular. It behaves like an embrace. A Kfakri child taps a placard that reads "Waiting," happening correctly, and nods with the gravity of amphibians. The librarian accepts Mina's parcel. He opens it as if a page might turn. Inside, squares of honeyed oat that look like bookmarks relieved of duty. He breaks one and sets half on the counter. "For the ledger," he says, gesturing at a blank book that smells faintly of mint. Our ledgers prefer exact kindness, too. The catalogue of quiet repairs. In the repair alcove, objects have been left to learn how to continue without complaint. A kettle spout remembers how not to shout. A lacesless shoe decides to keep being a slipper and is applauded by a small, polite mirror. A bridge plank, no one explains how it fits, receives a line of linen and a dab of pitch, and a whisper says, "There, there, think you for plays say, one to did, o rescended into ments." A mountain helmfolk courier stands by a table with a sheet of thick paper and a tiny silver shaving. He nods at me. "Wind wishes," he says. "You can't post them. You can only attach them to descent and not mention it." He pockets the shaving like a small certainty and leaves his thanks in the shape of his shoulders. The librarian adjusts a lamp. "We do no great mending here," he says. "Only the kind that lets a thing remember what it was trying to be." The tea that steeps for a book. We come to a round room whose shelves hold nothing but teapots, each with a tag on a string. "For last paragraphs," says one. "For chapters that go out to see if it's raining," says another. "For letters you will not send but are better for writing." A kettle on a trivet sighs in a manner I trust. The librarian pours into small cups that have entirely forgiven chips. The tea is the colour of polite earth. He places one cup before the ledger, which receives steam like a blessing. He places one before me. "Thank you," I say. "Let a sip tell you how time is shaped," he suggests. I do. Time is a round cookie from Mina's oven, broken precisely in half so two people will feel equally considered. On a tray, beside the kettle, are stamps that make no ink but leave impressions in air. Settled, listened, enough for now. The Svetelka stamps the room in 3 places ceiling, kettle, doorway, and the silence becomes porous in a friendly way. The shelves. At belly height. Books we lend most. the librarian explains as we enter a low, long aisle. The spines here are worn smooth by hands that were gentler after reading. Titles are stamped in soft type so the eye doesn't trip. The almanac of slow weather rests with loosened pages, a pressed leaf holding it open to a forecast I know but a moon. I pull a volume at random. It opens itself to Maps for When You Are Already There. The frontispiece is a circle with no legend. The paper smells like wooden bowls and a pencil that remembers the dormouse. I let the pages turn slowly. They talk like tables set for tea. What happens when something is overdue? I ask. The librarian raises a brow. Overdue is a word that forgot to nap, he says. Our books return when you are ready to say, yes, I know this now. At the end of the aisle, a stool waits, as if it were always a good idea to sit. I sit. The book closes with gratitude, and even the hinges are quiet. The Child and the Feather. At a clerestory window, a thin feather has rested itself. A child, not mine, not yours, but entirely a child, stands beneath, mouth open, the way mouths open when being careful with wonder. The feather quivers as if considering migration. That fell from the roof during rain, the Svetelka whispers, as if telling a story to a cup. The librarian holds out a small box. Inside, one piece of charcoal, clean string, a scrap of plain paper. The child draws the feather without leaning on the paper too hard. The line is a promise to the air. Beneath the drawing, the child writes arrivals, feather, departures, rain. The lettering is the shape of trying and therefore perfect. The box returns to its shelf. The paper goes to a bulletin board titled Weather for the Other Kind of Sea. I feel my chest, my other sea steady itself. A buoy sinks, a fish is greeted. It is pleasant to be reminded of polite customs. The book you cannot borrow. Every library keeps a book you can only read while standing by it. Here, it sits on a plinth that smells faintly of napping varnish. The cover is a grey, so considerate it agrees with every mood. The title, A Short List of Rooms That Know Your Name. I turn the first page. It is blank. On the second page, letters rise as if steam had learned to spell. The chair by the arched window where the blanket listened. I turn another page. The corner of the bar where you open letters slowly. Another. The 4 planks in the floor that count footsteps without reminding. I do not turn the next page. Some things you must let arrive without reading ahead. Leave it there, the librarian says gently. It continues when you are asleep. The inventory of breaths. Close to the stern, where the boat keeps its forgiveness for wake, we find the smallest room, which is not much of a room at all, more a wide shelf with cushions and a ledger. Above the ledger hangs a sign, Inventory of Breaths. A pencil sits ready, polite as a folded napkin. Travellers write the breath they are on, the heron explains, appearing as quietly as an answer that didn't need a question. It saves them from counting something heavier. The ledger is open to tonight. The entries are simple. Breath 17, deciding not to worry about tomorrow's weather. Breath 18, accepting that the kettle knows what to do. Breath 19, remembering a map with no legend. Breath 20, finding the good chair. There is space for more. I dip the pencil. Breath 21, signing for a parcel I didn't know I needed. I put the pencil back where it knows to be. The heron takes Mina's parcel at last and places it on a saucer. The tea is ready to meet it, she says. We share the squares among 4 cups and a ledger. The librarian eats with a thoughtful nod. Exactly kind, he mumbles. Returning is not rewinding. Do we choose a book? I ask. Or does one choose us? The librarian tips his head. Yes, he says, with that particular accuracy libraries prefer. We walk to a shelf labelled for crossing back. The books here are thin enough to slide under a pillow. I take one that feels the same temperature as a relaxed hand. It is titled A Way to Carry Light Without Breaking It. The cover looks like Mina's apron when she has been mildly busy. You may borrow it, the librarian says. Bring it back when it has said what it came to say. He slips a card into the back that reads, simply, when you know. We step onto the deck. The heron has watched the tide negotiate itself up by the width of a finger. The quay looks nearer. The moon sets a coin of approval on the river. Library's close, the heron says, so that walking may open. She bows a length of neck, which feels like an earned ribbon. The gangplank meets the quay without wake. The walk that completes the reading. The Kavakri watchman is still by his post, the lantern unchanged, which is how you know it is good at being a lantern. Find what you needed, he asks. Found what needed me, I say. He approves by remaining exactly as he is. The lane home smells of apples that made peace with wooden bowls. The chairs in the tavern have kept their promise to cool evenly. Steam tells the lip of a cup to arrive where it belongs. The fire breathes smaller, then smaller, but not as an argument. I sit and open A Way to Carry Light Without Breaking It. The first page reminds me of the heron's balance. The second page has a drawing of my counter that someone has already wiped. The third page is a recipe without ingredients. Hold the thing you are carrying and let it hold you back. I place the book on the shelf where windows have taught the dust to be beautiful. The room agrees by doing nothing suddenly. The part you sleep through. I blow out a lamp and dim another. Mina folds a towel, which is her way of telling the night she is listening. We make the small noises that rooms understand. Cup meets saucer, page meets air, shawl meets chair back. I write on a scrap, chairs, even, lanterns, behaved. One snore travelling northeast at 1 breath per minute. I tuck it behind the proverb book like a promise the morning can keep if it wishes. Before I sleep, I think of the sign that didn't insist, the book you cannot borrow, the ledger that doesn't mind being breathed on. I think of the feather on the station sign and of the child's handwriting shaped like trying. I think of a library that floats where the river forgets to be only water. I do not remember placing the blanket with the water blue stripe over my knees. I do not remember which page the thin book closed itself to. Perhaps it did not close. Perhaps it is waiting to be exactly kind again. That is the sort of book a floating library would lend. The fire has decided it is enough to glow. The room carries light without breaking it. We do not rehearse the morning. We accept its rumour. In the small hours, when sleep sorts soft things into softer ones, I dream I'm back on the barge. The heron writes my name on a card that does not need names. The otter stamps the air above my chest. Enough for now. A bell the size of a hazelnut sings like a teaspoon, deciding to be very quiet, and the tide, relieved, goes on with its gentle arithmetic.